So as I was getting ready to make this video, I realized that I switched my days. So the video that I gave you yesterday in Monday's folder goes with Tuesday's assignment, and this video right here goes with yesterday's assignment. So if you watched the video yesterday and then tried to do the assignment, you're probably thinking that didn't help much, because it didn't. So sorry about that. So the good news is that the homework isn't due until the weekend. So if you struggled yesterday with Monday's assignment, then this video right here is going to help you, and you can now go back and finish it or attempt it if you didn't even attempt it, or fix it if you think you did it wrong. And then when you go to do Tuesday's assignment, watch the video in Monday's folder if you haven't already, and that will help you do Tuesday's assignment. So here we go, the video that should have been for yesterday. It's basically finding x-intercepts of a more complicated equation. The reason this is more complicated is because it's x to the third power. But there's an x in every term, so you can pull out an x and now it'll be a quadratic again. Now this is what we did Friday, and all I had to do was find the greatest common factor. What do you pull out of each term? And a lot of you forgot to pull out the variable. Like in this term, in this problem, most of you would pull out a 4, and on Friday's homework, that would be the end of it. You said, all right, the GCF is 4, and a lot of you forgot that it's actually 4x. So you got to pull out the whole number first, and then you got to pull out the variable if there's an x in every term or the same letter in every term. So the greatest common factor here is actually 4x, not just 4. All right, so what do you multiply 4x by to make it 4x to the third power? You multiply it by x squared. And what do you multiply 4x by to make it 12x squared? You multiply it by 3x, and then you multiply it by 10. So it looks like this. 4x times x squared gets you back to where you started, 4x to the third. And 4x times negative 3x gets you back to where you started, negative 12x squared. And then 4x times negative 10 gets you back to where you started at negative 40x. So that's factor by reverse distribution first. You pulled out the greatest common factor. You pulled out the 4x. Now you can factor what's in the parenthesis. What's the two numbers that multiply to give negative 10 and add or subtract to give negative 3? Well, it's negative 5 and positive 2. So you have 4x, x plus 2, and x minus 5. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10, and negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. So that's how it factors. So if they wanted you to find the x-intercepts for this, you would set it equal to 0, and you would have 4x equals 0, you would have x plus 2 equals 0, and you would have x minus 5 equals 0, because remember, only one of those three things has to equal 0, and when you multiply them together, the whole product's going to equal 0. If you multiply three numbers together, if one of them is 0, your answer is 0. So as long as one of these three terms is equal to 0, then the whole left side of the equation is equal to 0. So when you solve for these individually, you divide by 4, and 0 divided by 4 is 0. So x could be 0. Or you subtract 2 to the other side, and x could be negative 2, or you add 5 to the other side, and x could be positive 5. So you would have 3 x-intercepts in a problem like this, and it would look something like this, negative 2 and positive 5. So your x-intercepts would cross at those 3 points. So your graph would look something like this. Now, we're not going to get into graphing problems that are that complicated, but solving for x, factoring out your greatest common factor, and then factoring it is something that you need to know how to do. So for the homework for yesterday, you could stop above the line. Once you factored out the 4x, and then you factored x squared minus 3x minus 10 into these two parentheses, you're done. You don't have to take it to the next step to find the x-intercepts, because we're not going to be doing graphs this year that have 3 x-intercepts. But eventually you will, and this is how you do it. Or you're going to have to solve for x, and this is how you do it. So factoring out the GCF and then factoring your big parenthesis like the way we've been doing last week is what you had to do yesterday. So please go back and do yesterday's homework, or take another look at it if you were confused after you've watched this video, and it'll make it a lot easier. And if you watch yesterday's video, you'll see that it wasn't too difficult. You can probably just do Tuesday's homework right now, but if you can't, go back and watch Monday's video again, and that'll help you do today's work.